Hello, songwriter, guitarist and producer Nile Rodgers is with me live in the studio. Good times indeed. We review Race, the story of Jesse Owens' battles both at the 1936 Berlin Olympics and at home in America. Magritte and Dahlia, the stars of the new Surrealism exhibition in Edinburgh, and Jesse Eisenberg, star of The Social Network, on his other career as a playwright.
When I'm acting in this play, it's an extension of writing. When I'm writing it, it's an extension of acting. You know, I'm not mixing cement or doing something that's so vastly different from the things that I know how to do well. So these are all extensions of, at best creativity, at worst some kind of exhibitionism.
More later from Jesse Eisenberg. But we start with my studio guest, a musician whose success can be measured in numbers, 100 million records sold worldwide, but is really best heard and danced to.
Good times.
The sound of Chic and Sister Sledge, the band's masterminded by guitarist, songwriter and producer Nile Rodgers, along with his musical partner, the late Bernard Edwards. But Nile's intuitive grasp of hooks, melody and arrangement he's heard not just on those records, but on those he's produced for over 70 artists throughout his career, including Madonna, David Bowie and Diana Ross.
I said upside down, you're turning me, you're giving love instinctively.
Cameo role on the Daft Punk hit Get Lucky. And now the hitmaker himself has a new role as ambassador for tomorrow's BBC Music Day. Nile Rodgers is with me in the studio. Was making me laugh just before we went on air there. Welcome back to Front Row. Ambassador Rodgers. Yeah. What does that mean?
It means I'm ambassadoring. What can I tell you?
You're not going to be playing at all of the events that are being lined up for tomorrow, though, are you?
No. So basically, it's to celebrate music throughout the UK. And the reason why I was so honored that they asked me to do it is because I sort of got my second life here. We started out in Ireland. And the first day we played there, the people went bananas. It's been this sort of snowball effect since then.
When are you talking about? When you
I don't
in
know.
the latest incarnation of Chic?
Yeah, in the latest incarnation.
Yeah.
And then I was stricken with very severe cancer, and instead of slowing down, I sped my game up, and I just kept gigging and gigging and gigging and gigging and gigging.
Yeah. And you're all clear, of course, now.
I'm all clear now, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. One of the missions of the BBC Music Day is to celebrate music's role in society, as a force to bring people together. Is it possible to describe what music means to you, what role it plays in your life, other than providing you with a living, of course?
Well, when I started out, it was for my entertainment, well before it was for my livelihood, that's for sure. I just love doing it. The great thing about music is that it's something that never goes away. If you learn to play it, I can understand why in the old days you always have a family where one person in the family could play the piano or something like that and entertain the guests. It's a gift that, I don't want to sound corny, but it just never, ever goes away. I get up in the morning, I practice guitar. I don't write every day to make music to sell. I do it because it makes me feel good. I sleep with my guitar.
This is your white Stratocaster, the hit maker.
My girlfriend has to sleep in another room. She has no problem with it. It's just how it is. I said the guitar was here before you. And
you are joking now.
I'm not joking. I'm dead serious. But it's not cruel. I'm not being mean. It's just the real truth is that I only sleep 2.5 hours a night, and she's a normal person and sleeps long.
So the insomnia is still there then, isn't it? I mean, because I know you've written about this, you've talked about this. And is this partly because you are trying to pack so much into your life? Because you are, the work rate is relentless.
Yeah, somebody said that, years ago, I was up for a Producers Award in one of the UK publications, I think it was NME. And I didn't win that year, but the journalist said that we should come up with a special category for Nile Rodgers for sheer volume alone. And they didn't mean loudness. They meant for just the amount of records that I make.
Productivity.
Yeah. Well, let me put it to you like this. They're now counting up my recordings. People, they think that I just started recording when Chic made it. But before Chic happened, I was making records every day of my life.
Absolutely.
I'd get up in the morning and say, okay, go to this studio.
You're a session guy.
Yeah, I was a session guy. So the person at Sony said, we're at 400 recordings, and we've just started to scratch the surface. I said, I'm on way more than 400 recordings.
Yeah. And you're back on the road all the time with Chic, with the latest incarnation, as you say. It's celebrating the legacy of your work with Bernard Edwards.
Yes.
And he was there alongside you as a collaborator, as a friend. He was a brother. I mean, such a loss, I guess, still when you're on stage.
Yeah.
You must turn and miss him every time.
We had such a special relationship because we were complete polar opposites. It's funny. When I wrote my memoir, I tell the story of the first time Bernard and I laid eyes on each other. It was 2 weeks after he and I had a phone call, and I told him the type of band I was trying to put together. I was a super hippie, and Bernard was like Mr. R&B. And I was like, man, I'm trying to put the band together that's like a cross between Fairport Convention, man, with a little Miles thrown in, and maybe, like a little bit of Jefferson Airplane. You know what I'm saying, man? And Bernard said, hey, my man, lose my number. Click, hung up the phone. So when I saw him, I had no idea he was the guy that I had spoken to, and it was on an R&B pickup gig, and I walked in and they were playing a song by the Meters called Sissy Strut.
Yes.
And I walked in and they were going do 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 do. So I came in, I was late, and instead of me just playing do 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 do, I started going do.
Those choppy riffs that you're known for. Yeah.
He was looking at me going, damn, you playing like two parts at once.
This has been a tough year for you as well. I mean, we heard in that montage at the beginning you worked with David Bowie, Let's Dance, losing not only David Bowie at the beginning of the year, but also your friend Prince as well. I mean, how big a shock was that? I mean, it was a shock to all of us, but...
That was a super shock. And it's irony on top of irony, because the last time I saw Prince, we were on stage playing Let's Dance.
Whoa.
We were playing Let's Dance.
As a tribute to Bowie.
Yes. It's 70,000 people. We were playing on July 4th of the year before last, and it was a big deal. It's called Essence Festival. It's huge. And Prince kept telling me, like, for years, I've always just wanted to play Let's Dance with you. So we almost did it a few months before that. He interviewed me for a magazine and said, okay, that's it. We're going to play it for the Essence Festival. He interviewed me for Essence magazine, and we did it. You can go look at it on YouTube, because normally Prince takes things down, right, when you put things up on YouTube. But when I put the performance up, not only did he not take it down, he retweeted it and said, no words. Right. It was amazing. It was one of the best nights of my life.
Right. When you were making those great sheet records, you were creating new sounds. You were pioneering. You were making up as you went along. Is it possible to be that creatively productive and original these days? And I'm just thinking, we heard a clip there from Daft Punk. They were just tapping in to the late 70s after having been electronic pioneers themselves. Don't you get a feeling that everything's come full circle now?
Yeah, well, everything always sort of comes full circle when it comes to art. There may be new technological breakthroughs that allow us to maybe expand our palette, if you will. But, almost every idea that we have is based on some sort of truth. Every song I've ever written, and this is just really straight up, every song I've ever written has been nonfiction with fictional elements thrown in. It's like I could write about a blouse, a jacket, the studio, EMX that you got over there that no one seems to know what that means in the BBC
exactly,
here.
which threw me just before we went on air. But anyway, that's all we're going to have time for. And even there's a new Chic album coming later in the year, isn't it? Okay, so you're going to come
And
back.
I have my own festival coming here.
Absolutely.
We're
We're going to talk about that as well later in the year. We're going back for the Chic album. Nile Rodgers, thanks very much. BBC
Thank
Music
you,
Day
man.
is tomorrow. Head to the BBC website for details of the events, including concerts being staged on 40 bridges throughout the UK. And Nile, as he says, is playing with Chic on the weekend of the 24th of June at the Fold Festival, which you've curated. Niall.
Absolutely.
It's at Fulham Palace.
At Fulham
in London.
Palace. Wait
There
till
we
you
go.
see that place.
Nile Rodgers, thanks very much.
Thank you, man.
In Berlin, 1936, as Jews were already being arrested on the streets and their property impounded, an African-American athlete launched a preemptive strike against fascism by winning 4 Olympic gold medals on German soil. In doing so, Jesse Owens became the fastest man on the planet and a superstar. And yet, on his return to America, he found the doors remained closed to him, including those of the White House. He didn't even receive a message of congratulations from President Roosevelt. Now comes a film which, as the title suggests, dramatises the battles that Owens had to fight both on and off the track. In the film Race, the athlete is played by Canadian actor Stephen James.
You know, out there on that track, you're free of all this. Moment that gun go off, can't none stop you. Not color, not money, not fear, not even hate. There ain't no black and white, there's only fast and slow. For those 10 seconds, you are completely free.
Stephen James in a scene from the film Race. Critic Alex Clark is with me to review it. Alex, a key moment of the 20th century, decisively, symbolically, dramatically. So we need a film to match, don't we? Do we get one?
I didn't think so. I was so disappointed by this film because, I mean, the kernel of the story, what a story, an extraordinary piece of history that unites, of course, and naturally this gives filmmakers an enormous challenge. There's a personal story. There's the story of an individual athlete overcoming all sorts of hurdles in his own background and then getting all through all the hurdles in his own country. And then you've got to tell the story of the rise of fascism. You've got to tell the story of the civil rights situation in America. Yeah. So we know that that's a tricky thing. The answer for me is not to try to pack every single thing in and not to do it with a sledgehammer.
And also visually, it doesn't work right from the outset. It looks like a made-for-TV movie, doesn't it?
It does a little.
It's got
actually,
that sort of gloss.
It's interesting. What you get, which is problematic to me, is not really a dramatisation of what happened, which we understand will have to have fictional elements, but characters simply sort of shouting positions at one another. And so you're told things. You're constantly told that Jesse, as he leaves Ohio and goes to university and is taken up by this coach who is himself, we know that he's disappointed because he pours himself a slug of whiskey and
He'd
downs
missed out
it
on
in
a
one.
previous Olympics.
He'd missed out on it. It's all gone wrong for him.
Yeah.
And we know that this is going to be his chance to turn somebody around, to really make a huge breakthrough. We're constantly told that Jesse he misses training because he's got a job at a gas station, because he has to put clothes on his baby's back. We're shown at the very beginning of the film his mother giving him a jacket and saying, you've got to take this to university with you. And yet everything is incredibly picturesque. The poverty is picturesque.
Yeah. And what about when we get to Nazi Germany as well? Because we have the representative of the American Olympic Committee striking deals with the Nazis there. So we get
Jeremy
Irons in a very declamatory way. And we have Joseph Goebbels as a cartoon villain. But I thought more curiously, Leni Riefenstahl, who was quite sympathetic. She was played as a sort of sexy, coquettish character.
Yes,
wasn't
she's
she?
always kind of sliding in and out, doing sort of extraordinary zoom shots and running in and saying, come on, nobody is going to mess with my film, Hitler. And then, running up to Jesse Owens and saying, give the world everything you've got. And you think, hang on, this is not the complicated figure and propagandist of history. It simply isn't.
What about for athletics fans that want to see a good race on the screen?
Didn't quite do that for me. I was very curious about this film. I understand again why you have to, we've got to be honest, this will be a lost bit of history to lots of younger audiences, Some people may find it obscure. It needs to be explained. I was so suspicious. There are good performances. Stephen James is good. Jason Sudeikis is good. But the idea of the white saviour coming in to take this guy through all sorts of hurdles, including Nazism, just didn't work for me.
Thanks to Alex Clark. Race is in cinemas from tomorrow, certificate PG. Jesse Eisenberg became a global movie star with his Oscar-nominated role as Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg in the film The Social Network. More recently, he played another billionaire businessman with dubious social skills, Lex Luthor in the Batman vs. Superman movie. And now Eisenberg is further exploring the field of unsympathetic characters on the London stage, starring in a play that he's written called The Spoils, a dark satire set in a New York luxury apartment. Eisenberg plays Ben, a spoilt rich kid who's dropped out of college and is failing in his ambition to become a filmmaker. His flatmate is a Nepalese-born student called Kalyan, who, despite being generous and clever, is the butt of Ben's jokes. Kunal Nayyar, best known as Raj in the American comedy series The Big Bang Theory, stars opposite Eisenberg as Kalyan. Here, Ben tells his flatmate about a chance meeting with an old school friend.
Yo, I had a kind of bad day, Bunty. I mean, bad compared to my other days, not compared to, like, world events or anything.
What happened?
Yeah, so I'm crossing 3rd Avenue, and I run into this kid that I went to elementary school with, Ted. He said he's getting married. What an idiot, right?
I don't know. Is he? All I know is that he's named Ted and that he's getting married.
Yeah, he says to me, can you believe I'm actually getting married? He says, can you believe that I'm finally settling down? So I said, yes, I can. You're a boring idiot from New Jersey who never had a girlfriend. Of course I can believe you're settling down. What else are you going to do, mow someone's lawn?
Well, I hope you actually didn't say that.
No, I said congratulations, but I was thinking that pretty loud and clear.
Jesse Eisenberg and Kunal Nayyar in The Spoils. When I met them at the Trafalgar Studios Theatre, I asked Jesse about the inspiration for the loathsome Ben.
I guess I think of probably 2 things. One is kind of what I observe in others and trends I see in a kind of generational tragedy of, feeling at once deserving and hopeless. Probably the other branch of the character is impulses in myself that I feel ashamed of or embarrassed by, and trying to kind of explore those through a kind of fictional avatar. I guess I suppose because I am roommates with Kunal's character, who is a kind of a Nepalese immigrant and an upstart and an ambitious, hardworking guy, I think my character feels like there's something unfair about the strange dichotomy of this guy having so much hope, so much meaning in his life, but has been given nothing, and my character who's been giving everything and for some reason can't kind of muster up any real meaning in his life, and that is really terrifying.
And Kunal, the character that you play, is so big-hearted as well, isn't he? He's very generous. He gives so much to his friend, and he regards Ben as a friend. But in a weird way, it's an abusive relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It turns out to be very abusive. But I think Kalyan is also not as innocent as he seems, because he's getting to live there for free. He's a student who's struggling with his finances, gets to live in this beautiful apartment for free, and he, in essence, plays the role of the housewife. He's always cleaning up Ben's stuff. He's always cleaning up the kitchen, taking care of the groceries when he puts them down. So, yes, it's an abusive relationship, but it's not like as if Kalyan doesn't realize that it's sort of mutually beneficial to him as well.
Interesting, isn't it, that people know you from the small screen from Big Bang Theory, playing Raj there. Again, it's another relationship scenario with a best friend. There's a kind of a bromance on the small screen. So a very different kind of relationship with Ben here. But do you see, obviously you see those parallels, and that's partly why Jesse wants you in the play as cast.
Maybe. I don't actually think about my relationships on Big Bang when it comes to my relationships in this play. In fact, I think they're quite different, obviously. But I don't know. Why did you cast me, Jesse?
One reason only is that he's a wonderful actor. I was not aware of him when I was writing this. When they sent me his name, the casting people, I felt like the luckiest writer in the world to be able to find somebody who's not only appropriate for the part, but so incredibly talented and everything you want in an actor, not only as a playwright, but even more importantly as a scene partner.
Yeah, and Kunal, Jesse's saying there that you hadn't worked together before, you didn't know each other socially before, but here you are playing 2 20-something men, holed up in a luxury apartment, but both in a way struggling with identity. What's it done for your relationship off stage? Because you have had to forge a kind of interplay, I guess, between the two of you, and you have to have an understanding of the characters.
Yeah, I think it's been very organic. I don't think that Jesse and I tried to become friends. I think we instantly became friends, which is rare but very lucky, especially for characters like these and relationships like these, because you can't go through a play like this together without trust. If you feel like you don't trust the person on stage, or if you don't trust them off stage, you can't really have a real emotion, you can't have a real relationship, you can't have anything that's real on stage.
It's a very physical play, it's also a very sensory play from the audience's point of view. We smell the food as it's being cooked, and rolling a lot of joints quite impressively, Jesse, I've got to say.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling always is, there's nothing that compares to the experience of watching a live performance. And so when I think of plays to put on, I like to think of experiences that can only be done in a live venue. The food that you mentioned, the smoking, the level of physicality, the drama.
Even the drinking, opening of beer bottles, drinking,
Well, I
pouring of
wondered,
water.
are those stage beer bottles, or is that real beer?
No. We obviously won't drink real beer. And if you've seen how many words we have to say, if we said them drunk, I'm not sure we'd be doing it.
But it's real Nepalese food that you're eating?
It's real Nepalese food that we're eating every night. Obviously, it's not alcoholic beer, but it tastes exactly like beer. The cigarette is, it's non-tobacco and it's herbal cigarettes, but in short, it tastes like cigarettes, If you notice, a lot of us are on our cell phones during the performance. We take out our cell phones to check messages, and so I think it's very important because you then forget it's a Jesse Eisenberg or a Kunal Nayyar. You're watching real human beings have real emotions who are listening and reacting, which I think is precious in the theatre. It's why people come.
Kunal, your first time on the West End stage, I think, but
Yes.
not the first time acting in Britain. You're at the RSC in
Yeah,
2012. For that
I was an understudy at the RSC. I was a swing and an understudy for Love's Labour's Lost at the Swan Theatre. We shared the common green room area with Sir Patrick Stewart, and he taught me the rules of rugby. Once I didn't know I was watching rugby. I was like, what is this? And I turned around and Sir Patrick Stewart was watching next to me. So we had a nice conversation. And that was the beginning of my career.
And you've written a memoir, an autobiography. It's called
Yes, My Accent is Real. Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell, a lot of people don't know that I'm actually from India. They read Wikipedia and they realize that I was born in Hounslow.
But born in Hounslow, exactly.
But I moved to India when I was 3. I wanted to inspire kids from India to live out their dreams, stop doing what their parents tell them to do, and do what they want to do.
Jess, you are juggling so many careers. Here you are as actor, as playwright, you're also director, producer. What does that do for each discipline? Does one feed into the other?
Yes, absolutely. Everything that I do is an extension of some kind of greater whole. When I'm acting in this play, it's an extension of writing. When I'm writing it, it's an extension of acting. When I'm writing this play, it's an extension of different characters, because when I'm writing it in my room, of course, I'm not very good at it, but I'm playing all the roles. Kunal is obviously 1,000 times better than what I'm doing in my bedroom, but when I'm writing it, it's an extension of me playing that role in some kind of small, very preliminary way. I'm not mixing cement or doing something that's so vastly different from the things that I know how to do well. So these are all extensions of, at best creativity, at worst some kind of exhibitionism.
What does it do for the dynamic on the film set, or when you're working with other directors, though, knowing that you can write, you can direct, you can bring these other skills to bear?
It's this strange, I would say, paradoxical relationship where, because I do these other things, I feel that much more comfortable not doing them, not meddling when I'm on somebody else's set. I have this very kind of relaxed lack of desire to try to change scripts that I didn't write, because I think I kind of get all of that, expression out in my own things. I know, based on writing things myself, that when you're writing fiction, it's not going to be this perfect world. There are going to be things that characters say and do that might not be 100% in line with everything that they, as people, might say or do, because there is a plot, there's other things, characters are going to be quiet for a moment, but I have more kind of respect, and I give more leeway to writers now, Sure.
Jesse Eisenberg and Kunal Nayyar. Their play The Spoils is on at the Trafalgar Studios in London until the 13th of August. The superstars of 20th century surrealist art are Salvador Dali, René Magritte and Max Ernst, and some of the greatest work by them and many other surrealists makes for an exhibition packed with the weird and the wonderful at the Scottish National Gallery of Modern Art. And yet the unsung heroes of surrealism are those who collected the works in the mid-20th century when they were shunned by many public museums in Britain. The exhibition, Surreal Encounters, Collecting the Marvellous, salutes the foresight of a group of collectors, including British artist Roland Penrose, who was married to the American-born war photographer Lee Miller. When I spoke to the show's curator Keith Hartley, I suggested that Penrose and another collector, Edward James, knew the artists personally, and so their collections were reflections of friendships rather than objective taste.
I think it's almost like obsessions, really. For example, Edward James, when one looks at it, he had quite a sort of widespread collection. He had works by Picasso and lots of other artists, but he really concentrated on the artists he most admired and that he could get on with on a personal level. So Salvador Dali, René Magritte, and Leonora Carrington, some of the female surrealists, and collaborating as well. I mean, that was one thing. He worked very closely, particularly with Salvador Dali. I mean, things like the lobster telephone or Mae Westlipp's sofa, and there's a wonderful work in the collection. He'd heard people talking about chests of drawers. So he did paintings and drawings of a woman with drawers coming out of her chest. Typical Dali.
It is typical, isn't it? Let's look at the collection of the couple, Ulla and Heiner Pitsch, a Berlin couple who began bringing their collection together, I think, in the 70s. And theirs is very interesting, isn't it? Because they are gathering very often the work of the artists that were deemed to be, generations earlier, well, under the Nazi rule, degenerate artists.
Well, precisely, because Heiner Pitsch tells the story about when he was in Dresden, still a young man, and going to the first big free exhibition of art since the fall of the Third Reich. And he'd sort of grown up in the Nazi period. And then he saw this and he said, well, this is all degenerate, this stuff. And then, but he kept going back and he said, actually, there's something in this. You know, I think I've been missing out on stuff.
Yeah, you say he had been missing out and the German nation had been missing out. But
Exactly.
I wonder whether we could apply the same logic to British institutions. Is there a sense that this exhibition, really a wonderful survey of surrealism, is only possible because of the private individuals, because they were collecting what was ignored and shunned by many of the British museums? There was an innate conservatism when it came to buying, wasn't there, in the mid
very
and late
much
20th
so.
century?
I mean, one particular instance, I mean, it's not a surrealist work, but there was a fantastic work by Henri Matisse. It was owned by a private individual in London. It hung, I think, in the Alpine Club in London for years. And it was offered to the Tate. I think it may have been £800. And someone said, oh, I'll put up 400. And it was still turned down. That work now hangs in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and it's one of their prime exhibits. And it shows how sort of, traditional people were. And it was only because of people like Roland Penrose and Edward James, who built up between them the best collection of surrealism anywhere in the world. Only because of their collections have the Tate and since our own collection here in Edinburgh been able to sort of have, a good selection of surrealist works.
And I'm sure that when these works were made, 30s and 40s in particular, you could pick them up for not a lot of money, worth millions now on the international market. Is this exhibition, could it also be seen as a model for a lot of future exhibitions when galleries are caught in a squeeze between public funding cuts and rising prices in an art market that will stick many zeros at the end of the price of a surrealist painting these days?
Well, it all depends on, how good the private sector is. In a way, are there people, like Roland Penrose and Edward James collecting today? I mean, there are obviously some people, but the collecting tradition in Britain, on the whole, since the war, has not been brilliant. There are still great collections of old masters in Britain, but when it comes to the 20th century and 21st century, that's a lot more meagre.
Curator Keith Hartley. The exhibition Surreal Encounters Collecting the Marvellous is at the Scottish National Gallery of Modern Art from